Hey, this is Derek and the Make a Fun Out of Them podcast. I'm here with Kevin McNeese, the owner of newreleasetoday.com, which is Christian and gospel music's biggest website on the internet. Really amazing resource for all kinds of great music, incredible artists that you can check out. And then you have an award show that you do, Kevin, I think in February. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So that's done in Memphis, I think, with Visible Music College. So we'll get into that in a moment.
Okay.
But welcome to the show, Kevin.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Derek. I've been looking forward to this one.
Yeah. I mean, so you and I have been friends for a while now, probably about 10 years or something, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Used to do a fair amount of I
Yeah.
used to do a fair amount of business with you.
Yeah.
And there's a long story how I'm not doing business with you now. It has nothing to do with how you do your business.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, what I wanted to really get into with you, Kevin, because you're a really savvy marketer, and I feel like you have your pulse on a lot of things that probably a lot of people are trying today. And I want to kind of bring different threads together from the tech of different ad platforms and, even email marketing, that kind of thing. And then using applying that to art forms, right? Any kind of content creator, you deal with
Sure.
music. That's been my experience as well. And then just platform building in general, like how do we do this now when
Yep.
the main on-ramps to the internet are through a YouTube app, a Instagram app, and a Facebook app, and a Twitter app, maybe.
So great.
Yeah, it reminds me of America Online days, right? Where you
Yeah.
you get a CD on a cereal box, and this was the only notion that people had of like getting on the internet. And
Right.
so we're back. So what's crazy is we're back to that. Remember those days?
Oh yeah. No, I grew
Yeah,
up with AOL for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And it doesn't it feel like that now?
It does. It feels like. But what's weird is that if you're not if you grew up with it, it's almost like you want to wring people's necks and going, this is not the only entry point. There's so much more to
Right.
discover here. But yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like a couple steps backward.
Yeah. So why don't we start there? Like, obviously, so you run this really big website. You've got millions of people who come to your website every year, right? Newreleasetoday.com.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and so what are the sources of traffic for you? Like what works in driving traffic for you?
All the above.
All the above. Okay. Meaning
It
what?
used, it used to be one or two sources, and now I'm finding that source has just been chopped about 10 different ways. And thankfully, because we've got a great team and we've really worked hard on building our brand across all these different lanes,
Yeah.
we've been able to really capitalize and be strong on all these various platforms.
Mhm.
So as kind of the major entry point, which would be just going to the site or Googling, as that
Mhm.
has dipped down,
Mm.
our other entry points have actually exceeded
Mhm.
and gone up. And so the reason why I say all the above is because it's literally an all hands on deck everywhere that we can be. Um, that makes sense. We are, but it's hard because each individual platform you've got to work on creating content specific to that demographic,
Mhm.
specific to that platform's ability. Like, is it image based, video based? Is it marketing based? Is it more just fun and stupid based?
Mhm.
And tailor your content directly to those audiences. So
Mhm.
that's probably the biggest challenge that we're facing right now, for sure.
Okay. And when you say that Google dropped off, like in terms of a source of traffic for you, why is that? Is it because they have more competitors now? Like, you know,
Yeah, well, I mean, when you
DuckDuckGo
have
and
headlines,
privacy search engines, like there's people using different browsers now, like Brave and other things. I
sure.
don't know how much traction those things are getting, but do you think they're
I don't
eating into Google market share at all, or is it not really?
No, I think when you get 60 to when you get headlines that say 60 to 75% of the younger generations are bypassing Google at large and just
Right.
finding their information through TikTok and Instagram, which
Yeah.
as a dad is terrifying. Um, then
Right.
then you're limited in what and how people are going to find you. We have
Hmm.
over 100,000 indexed pages on our site with
Hmm.
Google. We don't have
Hmm.
100,000 index pages through TikTok, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so so it's just a completely different world, and it feels like it changed overnight. It really does. Again,
Yeah.
and so here comes the eighth pivot that we've had to do to kind of stay relevant
Right.
with our growing audience.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and let's touch on that of like obviously TikTok, right, has been the quote rising star. I think, there's genuine concerns as people have raised privacy issues about TikTok. So we don't even know if that's going to stick around in the US for much longer.
Right.
That's going to be interesting to see. And so speak a little bit about like, you know, the importance of your own website and how
Yep.
and is the email list still important these days?
What is to us, I mean, when you have 170,000 people subscribe to your email, that's still a very important way to market. And what I love
Hmm.
about email is we control it. From the
Hmm.
front end, I do understand there's spam blockers and there's lots of systems to get around. That's always been the case. I think
Yeah.
if we're pushing out relevant content, I tend to just worry about what I can control. I can't really
Yeah.
control a third party spam blocker, but email is still an incredibly effective way to not only drive information, but also promote our partners. They love
Hmm.
it, and also to talk directly to our audience. And this is our core audience
Hmm.
that we're talking to week in and week out,
Hmm.
where a random visitor coming to the site through a random Google search will kind of come and go.
Yeah.
This is our ability to really lock and load with a very captive audience and continue that conversation week in and week out. And so
Hmm.
that's why I really believe in email marketing still.
Yeah.
Um, but it is one tool of many now.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, and I mentioned the spam blockers because I know that most email clients now, like Outlook and other one, I use one called Spike, and it puts everybody I have not directly emailed myself into an other category.
Yep. Yeah.
And I probably get 600 emails a day in the other category, which
Right.
I might look at like every couple weeks or something. Um, so I'm sure I'm probably a little bit of an outlier in terms of the volume of email I get every day, but
I hope
um,
so. I hope the average person is not getting that much email a day. Um,
um, but but yeah, so in terms of other things that are working, like when you mention other things outside of email, like what other things are you trying or have tried, or
yeah.
things that you're
Texting,
noticing that
texting
are
is
working outside of
sure.
email?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Texting is definitely a way to get around
Mm,
that, and texting gets
right.
a lot of interaction. The open rates are incredible. I'm in
Yeah.
the 70s to 80s, where emails in the teens.
Yeah.
Um, the the response rate is great as well, and you can continue to
Hmm.
push people to a website through that, and so you can
Yeah.
still drive traffic.
Yeah.
The con of text is it is expensive.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of free options out there, so you will pay for it monthly.
Hmm.
But you for $100 a month, you can get a really solid list going with thousands of people and subscribe to that list. So
Yeah.
for us, it has been cost prohibitive just because we're so big.
Hmm.
But for a majority of artists that we work with or smaller brands just starting out, I think it's something that should absolutely be part of the arsenal.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
the
Great point about texting. I mean, because like Gen Z definitely, at least in my experience, is not using email
Nope.
or very much, right?
Yeah.
Like
Nope.
it's maybe to sign up for something or get a free discount on a website or something. But other than that,
Yeah.
communicating with your friends. It's not happening through
No.
email.
No.
So
So
yeah, so
social is.
texting, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, so I think texting is a great platform. And again, like you said, owning that list yourself is super
Hmm.
important, obviously.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, that data, anytime you can own the data and talk directly to the consumer or talk
Yeah.
directly to your audience is
Yeah.
huge. And email and text are two ways that just do that. Um,
Hmm.
for example, like a social media post would be a lot different. Now you're having to rely on a third party to serve that post, and then you're relying on that random person that you don't know. You're just screaming into a wall and hoping someone pays attention to you in their 2 seconds of flipping through hundreds of
Hmm.
other messages just like it. Completely different type of communication. Whereas a text
Yeah.
and an email is very intentional, it's very personal, it's a
Hmm.
one-on-one, you're going straight to the source. And I think that's massively more powerful
Yeah.
than any other marketing tools we have.
Right. And have you done any kind of like partner marketing on some of the social platforms for any partners of yours, or direct marketing yourself of like just paying to boost that post, or paying to target, to promote a certain event, or, something like that? Have you done much of that on the social platforms, like
Oh,
using the ad
sure. Yeah.
engines?
And budgets of anywhere between, we'll kick $25, $30 at a post to boost
Hmm.
to anywhere from $200 to $300. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll take as much money as you can throw at them. You have $2
Right.
million, it's probably still a drop in the bucket. There's just,
Hmm.
the numbers are just so huge. What's interesting though, is that they've certainly made it a lot harder for faith-based marketers to reach an audience. Just
Okay.
recently this year, Facebook, which also owns Instagram, put in um, a lot of blocks against religion and religious based posts. So you can't
Interesting.
target a Christian audience anymore. You have to
Interesting.
kind of play around it. And they've done 2 or 3 rounds since they announced this where they've even taken out the loopholes that people have found. They're purposely
How much?
making
Yeah.
religion and political posts harder to do.
Okay, interesting. So there's a couple of interesting currents there, because it was just what, a couple of years ago, or even just the year before the pandemic, probably 2018 timeframe. Facebook was going hard after faith-based organizations to help them, because so many faith-based organizations like live stream, on Facebook, say on Sunday mornings or whatever, and so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm at a radio station group here locally, and what's making it hard is they'll still take your money, and you can still
yeah,
say, "Hey, listen
right,
to Christian music or listen to Christian radio or whatever." They don't
yeah,
block the words, but if
yeah.
I want that post to be seen by like Christians in Boise, for example,
Uh-huh.
or religious, anybody who has a religious affiliation, I can no longer do that.
I
And
see.
you have to be vague and target everybody, which
Okay.
if you're marketing on social, you don't want to do that. You want to be very targeted with your approach.
Well, and I'm wondering how much. So the other factor there is, I'm wondering how much that came from Apple turning off Facebook's ability to target people on iPhones, right? Because that happened
Hmm.
with one of the iOS updates recently, and then
Hmm.
Facebook lost a lot of its targeting ability, because Facebook was installing bits. When you put in, when you download the Instagram app or Facebook app, they would put
Sure.
bits on the phone that would like thumbprint your phone, like based on the number of apps you have, the type of apps you have, the exact apps you have. They could uniquely identify, like Derek, and all the interests that I have. And so uh, Apple essentially took that all away,
Hmm.
that device fingerprinting kind of technology. So I'm wondering if that was a contributor, do you think, or do you think they're just trying to avoid the polarization and the tribalism kind of thing?
Uh, I don't know about the Apple thing. I mean, it would make
Yeah,
sense, but then on the flip side, you would think that that Facebook would be, or Meta, whatever they're calling
yeah,
themselves now,
right.
whatever the flag is flying now. I think they are. I would think they would be more apt to help people target even more.
Hmm.
the few amount of, with fewer
I
targeting
see.
information.
Right, right.
So I kind of lean more on it's the culture at large of the tribalism,
Hmm.
and let's be inclusive to everybody, and anything that doesn't now gets thrown out, and
Yeah,
that whole ideology you're seeing
right.
on the other end of the spectrum.
I see.
But from a
Gotcha.
marketer, it's making it much harder to find an audience.
Okay. And then, but so let's now talk about targeting, like, or actually from the uh, consuming side of being a musician or artist or content creator. So, what advice would you give content creators, musicians in today's world to use these tools? What do you think is the right mix right now for kind of getting your stuff out there? I mean, because even like I used to tell you, like, a few years ago it was 20,000 tracks dropping a day. I heard a latest statistic close to 60,000 music tracks dropping a day now on digital music services. So
Yeah.
what's your advice to artists trying to rise above that noise?
Well, it's a great question that requires a lot of conversation and work, but I'll try to
Hmm.
sum it up as best as I can.
Hmm.
Be ready to create content in a lot of different areas. You have to engage your audience with more than your song. A lot of times
Mm,
artists, that would be the
right.
product. And we are working
Yeah.
incredibly hard on creating the song. And we throw that
Yeah.
song out there, and then we go back to creating incredibly hard to work on the song. And
Hmm.
we're forgetting the fact that the audience really doesn't care about the song as much anymore.
Right.
Especially if you're doing this on your own and you're just kind of going on the grind. The audience is not going to attach to your song. uh,
Yeah.
they're going to attach to you as an individual.
Yeah.
They're going to attach to your stories, your compassion for them and where they're at. They're going to attach to um, like to your social media channel. They're going to attach to your words beyond the song. The song is just going to keep them coming back and being reminded of who you are.
Yeah.
um, but really, they're not going to attach to it because they have hundreds of other songs like vying for their attention this week. And then next
Right.
Friday, your history. And we've got
Yeah.
another 200 songs coming in right behind you. And
Right.
so artists do one of three things: that they just don't play the game, and they just go back and don't engage their audience and write music, or they write way too much, and so they feel they have to barf out a new single every 1 to 2 weeks. We are seeing
Yeah.
this so much. New music
Yeah.
coming out every 1 to 2 weeks. That is
Hmm.
content. I'm creating content for my audience. No, you're not. You're
Mm.
creating noise, and nobody's listening to you. Um,
Yeah.
and
I
then
know
the
that.
third, and then
Yeah.
the
Go ahead.
third is that. Sorry, yeah, the third is that you create engaging content that supports your music, and so that would be
Hmm.
blogs and videos and merch, and social media posts and stories that really engage your audience.
Yeah. And Daniel Ek, the CEO of Spotify, he's talked about this of like, it's about storytelling. And I've said this for a long time too, of like, you know, kind of building on what you're saying, as the artist, right? You have certain values and things that you stand for, even just music genre wise, right? If you're heavy metal country or, whatever your thing is, uh, right? That all plays into some persona. And for you to be able to say, hey, this is, be part of my tribe, right? We're part of this together. We're in this together. Let's do life together. And here's a story that I have to tell of what happened to me. And like, um, it's really more about that, right? And songs are just the part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're
So,
really finding this challenge on the site right now as we navigate this as well. And
mhm,
and I think this applies to any brand
mhm.
that creates product. The
Yeah.
product is no longer the story.
Right.
Everything you create around the product is the product. Like
Yeah.
everything you
Right.
create around that thing that you're selling is the product. Uh,
Yeah. Right.
and that's what you have to share the story and focus on telling the story about.
Yeah, I feel like it was a couple years ago. I remember seeing some stuff from Nike from their all condition gear line. So they used to have, or I think they still do, the ACG line of like shoes and clothing and stuff. And they wouldn't really talk about the gear and the footwear.
Right.
They
Yeah.
were just like, hey, let's go on this adventure and climb this mountain. And, this is, this cool waterfall we found, or, whatever. And I was like, oh, wow. Like they're really doing that.
Right.
They're telling the story and putting the product in the back seat. And it felt really
Yeah.
good. Like as a
Yeah.
consumer, I was like, wow, this is really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to see more of
Because what do
that, I
you
think.
do?
Yeah.
What do you do in your life? Do you sit around thinking about what new Nike products you're going to buy? Or do you think
Right.
about what you're going to
Right.
do? Like, I'm going to go
Yeah.
hiking. I'm going to go,
Yeah.
I'm going to go snowboarding. I'm going to go do things, and I
Hmm.
need product to help me. And boom,
Yeah.
now this lives. So that's brand building. And artists are no different. Websites are no different. You have
Yeah.
to you have to be top of mind as your listeners, as your visitors are living their lives. How are they going to
Yeah.
come back and remember you?
Yeah. Right. And then that brings me to the next subject, which is income streams for content creators and artists. And we can talk specifically about music artists because, that's certainly dwindling and has been dwindling for music artists for a while.
Yeah.
Streaming has not, I mean, at least from my perspective, I mean, I've been helping some different independent artists here recently, and it doesn't seem like it's gotten a whole lot better. I mean, they keep saying that like, oh, we're having record years in terms of like, music industry, revenue and stuff. And to me, it looks like it means more of the major labels locking up a lot of that revenue, but
Sure.
it's not really hitting the independents so much. So I get excited personally about NFTs, the future of crypto, because now we have a means of taking goods in the digital realm and making them rare, which is really what music was about. Like, hey, we press this vinyl and you know and we made a run of 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever, and that was it. Or you got this
Yeah,
piece of special merch at this show and that was it.
that was it. Yeah.
And NFTs, I mean, I think are just an exciting way to be able to do that. And then the other way is just straight up booking gigs. Like when I look at any music artists today, like they're going to earn 10 to 100 times more money
Oh yeah.
from their live events than they would ever from streaming revenue.
Yeah.
Is that what you're seeing too? Anything to add to
Well,
that?
I don't know much about NFTs. You're the expert there, and the guy. So I bought my first NFT for my son, who's 13 years old, and he drew it, and I paid him $5 for it, and that's my experience. That's my experience
Well, at
with
least you did
NFTs.
it.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you had the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
I'll buy anything for my son for $5. Like, whatever, dude. Yeah, here's
And most
$5.
people will too, which is another interesting marketing point.
Yeah, 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 that's true. But
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, the in-person revenue is one of the hardest things for younger and newer artists to do, for independent artists
Hmm.
to kind of do, but it is absolutely essential.
Yeah.
One, it puts you in front of people, which you
Yeah.
can't replace that experience at all.
Hmm.
But anytime that you can connect that, again, this comes back to branding. What are we selling? Are we selling your music? Are we selling you and your passions, and connecting that to the audience's passions? So the merch table is a great place to do that. And
Yeah.
I just encourage artists, yeah, have a shirt, that's fine, but do something different.
Yeah.
Do something really unique and limited. I love the
Hmm.
limited edition thing,
Yeah.
talk about how, hey, I made 100 necklaces and this is all I
Yeah.
got, and we'll make a new design when this is gone.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing mine, and I'd love you to wear it. And it says this, and it's connected to a lyric of a
Hmm.
song. And now you've taken that 3-minute thing that everybody has forgotten about, and you've given
Right.
it tangible meaning that connects the listener to you. Um,
Yeah.
and those ideas are, I mean, you can sit there and brainstorm those ideas 100 different ways all day long, because they're just as different as the lyrics and songs.
Yeah.
Um, so
I love
I love the in-person concert. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I love telling the story of I worked with a band, as you know, called Circle Slide, and the lead singer Gabe played the harmonica.
Hmm.
and his wife was, often doing the road managing. And after every gig, Gabe would take his harmonicas that would often get blown out, they get out of tune, whatever, and he'd throw them in a coffee can. And suddenly, his coffee can is full of 20, 30 harmonicas. So Debbie, his wife, decides, hey, the next gig, I'm going to put out the coffee can and say, used harmonicas, $20. She sold them out.
That's kind of creepy, though.
Spit and all.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but
Wow.
it was the rarity of having one of Gabe's harmonicas. Like, that
Yeah.
was a super cool thing, right?
Some mad scientist clone has created like 20 Gabes from his harmonica spit. But I think that's I've seen major bands do this too with like the drum covers where they'll
Oh
take the
yeah.
drum cover off of the concert, they'll sign it. There's only one. It's like $100,
Mhm.
you know.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. But definitely any kind of product from your show that you can simply replace and create
Yeah.
some interest around. It's also kind of cool to just get people to your table. Uh,
Yeah.
Even if I'm not going to buy it, I'm going to come check it out and look at it and
Yeah.
see something
And
neat.
then, so linked to that, just even backing up a step of getting the gig to begin with, what are you seeing in terms of like getting the gig for an independent artist, right? Because I like to say there's two worlds, right? There's the major label world, which less than 1/10 of 1% of people are going to actually attain. And
Yeah.
then there's the indie world, which 99.9% of us actually live and exist in. So for that independent world, what do you see, or what advice would you give for getting a gig or making the appearance?
I
And
think
yeah.
the biggest thing that I'm seeing artists not do is collaborate and network.
Yeah.
I think they're so used to doing everything on their own. They feel like they're
Hmm.
the only ones. They're out on their own island. I
Yeah.
think if you can spend some time networking with a local radio, not because they're going to play you, because they will not,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because these are organizations that have their tentacles into the community, and
Mm.
start small local. Um,
Yeah.
if you have not exhausted every corner and every possibility, and every single person doing events and fairs and farmers markets
Yeah.
and summer worships in the parks and concerts and all the
Hmm.
above, you got plenty of work to do locally. They should
Yeah.
know who you are. They should know what kind of music that you play. You should have offered a 15-minute acoustic lunch for their team where you just sit down and play in front of them and bring them
Yeah.
coffee or whatever. You should be
Mm.
volunteering for their organizations and networking and helping. I'm a huge component of give before you get,
Yeah.
serve before you're served.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of intentionally showing up for others before they show up for you.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot to unpack there,
Yeah.
but that's step one, and then step two is find other people who are doing that in their communities that are maybe in a 3 to 4 hour drive from you,
Mm. Right.
and then partner with them. And so
Yeah.
now instead of you going out on your own, now you got two bands, two artists that are doing the
Hmm.
same thing with the same goals, and find another one.
Right.
Now you've got three bands and three artists, and then go to some acoustic shows and home shows and network. If you're just going to go out and think you're going to book shows on your own and you're going to be singing at churches and filling up arenas, like good
Hmm.
luck. Like
Right.
nobody
Right.
cares.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
um,
Well, there's a saying in politics, you can't win the presidency if you don't win your own home state.
yep,
Um,
yeah,
and that's very true. Like,
yeah.
when you look at politics, it's very true. So it's very, so it applies to music as well.
I do think artists are very bitter towards radio, and I understand why because they won't
Yeah.
play. But I think people I don't think artists use radio to their advantage at all.
Hmm.
Um, and I think if you go in just understanding, look, this is a mountain I'm not going to conquer. The end,
Yeah.
end of story, done deal. They're not
Yeah.
going to play me. If they do,
Yeah.
great, but chances are they won't. But what they will do is, I mean, our local radio station just had three giant summer events with
Mhm.
major label artists, and at each
Yeah.
one we had 1 to 2 independent local artists open.
Mhm. Oh, good. Awesome. That's good.
Yeah,
That's a step in the right direction.
yeah. But if we don't
Yeah.
know about them, I mean, when
Yeah.
one was only 2 hours away, and we're all sitting around like scratching our heads, going, "Well, who do we don't know anybody," and we're the ones making cold calls to
Yeah.
worship teams and to artists, and
Yeah.
um, it just doesn't happen. But I think if I'm an artist, I'm gonna go to a local radio station. I'm gonna go, "Hey, how can I serve? How can I serve you in your upcoming events? Even if I'm not
Yeah.
playing, how can I
Yeah.
volunteer? Can I run your
Right.
merch booth? Can I run the booth? Can I hand out flyers? Can I help you get posters around town?"
Mhm.
And I think that old rule of it's gonna come back to you
Yeah.
will apply.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. So, you and I have had this discussion many, many times before this, but let's educate the audience of, say, why an independent artist doesn't get played on radio. So why is that? I know why. Do you want to attack this, or do you want me to attack it?
Because you're an independent artist. There's no other. That's the answer. They're not going to play you
Mhm.
because you're an independent artist. I think whatever the real answer is, the truth is independent artists do not get played on radio. Now, there's
Yeah.
always exceptions to the rule. There's always a
Yeah.
mom and pop. There's always the fringe formats. Maybe you got a local
Mhm.
rock station or a local hip hop station where a little more open to independence than maybe an AC
Yeah.
station is.
Yeah.
But you
AC,
gotta
adult contemporary.
adult
Yeah.
contemporary, yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta understand both in Christian music and mainstream music, you're up against the machine,
Yeah.
and this machine.
Multi-billion dollar publicly traded media conglomerates.
Yep. And this
Yeah.
machine is has trained radio to add 2 to 4 songs a month, maybe less.
Yeah.
Four
Yeah.
would be generous, maybe two to
Yeah.
4 songs a month. And just from the label system, they're getting pitched 15, 20 songs a week
Right.
in some high. And so
And
already program directors are leaving dozens of professionally produced with tons of money behind them, with an entire radio team behind them on the
yeah.
floor.
Yeah.
The
Right.
chances of them picking you up over them, it's
Yeah.
just reality, right?
Yeah.
Well, my
Well,
song's
and
really
let's
good.
so let's talk about too, like Gen Z in radio. Like, so how important even is radio now? Like, do you feel what what would you say to a Gen Z artist coming up and making their way? Like,
Who
spend
cares?
time on that at all? What would you do?
No, who cares?
Yeah.
You don't. That's why I say there is a reason to spend time at radio. It's not to get your single played. It's to
Yeah.
get a gig in
Right.
your local city.
Yeah.
If you spend any money or any energy or any time at radio that's over maybe $500 in a couple hours, you're
Yeah.
wasting time and energy.
Yeah.
And I will tell artists that to their face all day long.
Yeah.
I just
Right.
believe that to my core. I think it's
Yeah. Yeah.
there's always someone who's going to disagree with something you say at some point in
Yeah.
time, but I feel that's a pretty set in stone.
So I'm gonna do a video on this probably separately, but here's my music industry hack that I think works
Okay.
today. And this is, I think, what happened with Maverick City. I'm using Maverick City as the template here. So Maverick City is uh, a church that recorded a series of videos of them performing their music with a group of people around a piano and a small band. Um, and they just recorded that. They recorded it well, post produced it well, looked great, sounded great, but it was just a live performance, right? Just like at their church. Put it on YouTube. People loved the song. Like, the song had to be great, right? Like, the song, you know,
Yep.
has to mean something.
Sure.
So I feel like that's great, because now we're just judging things on their merit. So they
Yep.
got, like, through their network and just the merit of the song, like, they got 100,000 views on YouTube, right? And so organically that started to grow to like 200,000. Then it went to 500,000. Then it went to a million.
Hmm.
And once it was at a million, all like phone is ringing.
Sure.
Right? Maverick City everywhere. Come play this, come play that, come play
Yep.
this. And so I think the magic there was, well, for them it was great because it was just really a purely organic thing that happened, which was amazing to see. But I've done some experiments with some artists myself, and if you have a good song with a decent music video, you can use that music video to be a paid ad on YouTube. So if you go,
Mhm.
hey, I sound like Billie Eilish or whatever, you can say, you can take your music video, go to ads.google.com, target Billie Eilish as the keyword, and then run your music video as an ad targeting Billie Eilish fans.
Mhm.
So after Billie Eilish song or music video runs, your music video is gonna start like right after and
Right.
get shown for 15 seconds before somebody hits skip.
Yeah.
But if they don't hit skip, you're gonna get view time. And that view time then shows up on a graph. And if that graph is super steep, like if it drops off, then your music video sucks, your song sucks, your
Yeah.
content sucks. There's no
Right.
way around it.
Yep.
But if the graph looks more linear or even just slightly uh like exponentially dropping off, not a steep exponential, but slight curve, then it means your video has some virality. And so you can use like, you can pay like $50. Well, I would say even like $10 a day. You can spend $50 a day. Do that for a week. See if you can flatten the curve more.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And if you are, I've done some calculations, only takes about $7,000 if you have a decently viral song to reach a million views. And now you have
Wow.
a public counter that everybody can see. Like
Yep.
Instagram can't do this, Facebook can't do this. You can't see the counters on those platforms, but you can on YouTube, and nobody disputes it. And if you can get to a million views, phone's gonna ring.
Yep.
So that's my music industry hack
I love it.
for today.
I love
Yeah.
it. And I
So do
love
you
that.
think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Do you think like that? Do you think that would work? I mean, I've been seeing it work with a couple of artists, but finding an artist who wants to spend $7,000 on their career is a whole nother thing, which is
Right.
kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah,
the challenge. I think I always believe you got to spend money to make money, and
yeah,
the challenge is what I love about what you just explained, Derek, is it's a viable path forward in
yeah,
a massive amount of options that are available to everybody at any
hmm
time.
right,
And I think whenever this is just human nature thing. Whenever we're faced with a ton of options, the majority of us are going to shut down and do nothing. And
right,
or we're going to test it, throw a couple $100 here and there and go, well, that didn't do
hmm
anything. My
yeah,
life is still the same after spending $200 on an Instagram boost.
hmm
Why am I still
yeah,
eating cereal for
right,
breakfast? And there's just no patience in the build.
yeah,
But
right,
I
right,
love that plan, and it has an end goal too
hmm
of viable. Like, look at that number. You can see it right there, and do
yeah.
something with that. So that's cool.
Yeah, and you can do the experiment in a very short time, like in a few days or 5
Mhm.
days. You can really clearly see that curve happening. So do you think there's any other kind of tips or tricks like that that you know of right now? Like you could tell some new artists to maybe try?
See, I work with too many broke artists. Which I love.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
still
with the
get money
NRT,
from them, which is great.
with the NRT, we
Yeah.
really, we really try to start the conversation with, well, what can we do? What can we do with no money?
Yeah.
A lot of the artists that I work with are really starting at ground zero of like,
Mhm.
we got a song and that's about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like create the great content, but also do it with little budget. And there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do.
Yeah.
This
Right.
is, what you're talking about is a fantastic idea for that next two phase of like,
Mhm.
okay, hopefully someone doing that if they don't have the basics covered, if they don't have social rocking, if they don't have a website that people can sign up for,
Yeah.
a newsletter, if they don't have a text thread, if they don't have all these basics, I hope they're not doing what you just said, because it's going to be a lot of money that's going to go nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Hmm.
people skip from point A; they just want to get there.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but there's so much work in between. So
Hmm.
the short answer to your question is no, but then I'm
Yeah.
also not in that space as much as you are yet.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and so I've been trying different things. It's weird because like my career spanned 15 years in big tech and 15 years in the music industry.
Yeah.
And I've worked with, mainly independent artists, but a lot of the artists I've worked with have gone on to get signed by major labels, or they've gotten offers from major labels. Like, I think my batting average is pretty good there. And it's interesting. So I'm always on the lookout for like what's kind of happening now. And so anyway, so that's my current hack for the music system overall. And I would vouch for what you're saying too, of just good brand building for the artist. And you and I actually, a couple years ago, we authored a course that people can take online,
Hmm.
christianartist.pro.
Hmm.
You can go to that website, and it goes through. So if you don't really know like what steps to take, that website will really walk you through the whole thing of how to build your brand, how to
Hmm.
just get the basic building blocks in place. And so until you've done that, it's probably not worth spending any money, say on the YouTube ad campaign or whatever. Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I do know, if you look into what Manifest is doing,
Mm,
he's a Christian artist and also just a really savvy business guy. He does a
yeah.
lot in the space of offering merch for nothing and just asking for shipping, and then using that
Ah,
data to turn around and push the next thing. And so whenever he releases an album, he'll take his last album and make it for free.
yeah.
He does do physical copies. He prints very few of them, but you get a
Hmm.
physical copy, you get a T-shirt, you get stickers, you get kind of all this merch, and you pay $10 for shipping. But
Mm,
his reason for doing that is not to make money. His reason for
yeah.
doing that is to collect data so that he can turn around and push everything that's new. And he has found,
Gotcha.
and he takes that model, he takes that funnel, and that's what he
Yeah.
promotes. So that's what he puts money
Mm,
into promoting. Um,
yeah. I'm
but
probably promoting his next appearances, right? Like,
yes, yeah,
yeah, have me come to your next festival, whatever. And he's building his fan base very easily that way.
yes. But it's all
Ah, that's
based
a
on
good.
data.
I
It's
love
all
this hack.
Yeah, it's all based on
Yeah,
data collection, though. That's the goal, right?
yeah, yeah,
Owning that data and continuing that conversation.
yeah, yeah. So we have to make a list of these hacks, Kevin. We got to. I call them music industry hacks.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Well, cool, Kevin. So, well, thanks for being on the podcast today. There's so much more we can cover. We're gonna have to do this again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have so many
What's fun about
conversations. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say what's fun about talking to you is you inspire me to go do more, and I'm like, I'm lazy. I
You're
need to
not
learn more
lazy.
what Derek is doing.
If it's one thing I know about you, Kevin, you are not
Wow,
lazy. You are one of the most hardest working guys I know.
there's always
So
something else
if
to do.
if you want help marketing your music project, call Kevin. Go to newreleasetoday.com. Uh, get his help in marketing your music. You will not be disappointed. Kevin is a machine. And honestly, you help. I mean, you help. All the major labels or most of the major labels, and a lot of the big independent labels and artists and stuff. And so you've definitely been around the block
Yeah.
doing marketing for a very long time. So
Yes.
yeah.
21
So
years, 20 no, 22 years as of this year. So
mhm. Yeah. Great. Well, Kevin, well, again, great to have you on the show finally. And we're definitely gonna have to do a part two of this. And yeah, and tell
yeah,
and tell more of the story of how we kind of hooked up as well,
that'd be
and the
fun.
adventure that I went on and what that looked like.
That'd be fun.
So yeah. Okay, Kevin. Well, we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Take care.